round of applause for the wonderful piano music here. Welcome to day 2 of Writers Week 31. We're very happy to have you. A few thank yous before we get started. Thank you to the boosters, whose generosity, without whose generosity we wouldn't be able to have this wonderful event. So if you have a family member, a neighbor, a friend who is a part of the booster, please tell them thank you. Please let them know that you appreciate everything that goes on here at Writers Week. Thanks to you, the students who are sitting here. Can you clap for yourself? That's allowed here, right? Give yourself a round of applause. We have professional guests who come here. Even yesterday, if you saw the sports panel, once the period ended, the first thing that they said to each other, which I overheard, was, "Man, what a great group of students." And it really is true that you are the reason why this event continues on and on. Not just the 100 or so amazing students who are up here on stage every year, but just the fact of being an amazing audience. We are really grateful for your attention, your questions, your creativity, your respect, all those wonderful things. So thank you there. Thank you. I'm going to shout out Tech Crew, who's been working overtime to make sure this is going on. Thank your English teacher or your teacher who brought you here. Turn to the end of the aisle, give them a little wave, give them a thumbs up, give them like a rock on, something like that. Whatever little handshake you have with one another, that's the thing. All right. So I'm very honored to welcome today's guest. She and I graduated from Fremd High School the same year, which, I'm not even going to tell them what year it was, but it was a few years ago that we graduated. Teresa Zeglitz is a Pushcart Prize-winning poet. She works as a poet in residence with the Chicago Poetry Center and an organizer with the Mini Wachoni Nakachi Jiwamspe at Standing Rock Reservation. Her first book, titled Something Small of How to See a River, was selected by Tampa Jess for Tupelo Press's Dorset Prize and will be releasing this year in October. I just found out she has a picture book titled Belonging, co-written by Kimimila Locke, which will be coming out in 2026. Received many recognitions from the Academy of American Poets, Elizabeth George Foundation, on and on and on. So many awards. We are very, very lucky and grateful to have her here. Please give a warm Fremd round of applause for Teresa Zeglitz.
Can you hear me okay? Am I using this right? Okay, great. It's such an incredible honor to be here. Like Mr. Anderson said, I graduated from Fremd. I was too shy at that point to share my own work at Writers Week. So I want to give a huge, just kudos to all of you who are coming up here and sharing your work and sharing your ideas. And also, if you're not ready yet for that, that's okay too. If you're writing in your journal, that matters and that's meaningful, and keep doing it. This event is such a huge part of why I'm a poet today, and I'm just really grateful to be here, and grateful to you all for being here with me, and grateful to Mr. Anderson and Ms. Ank for all of their work organizing. I wanted to start with a poem that's not mine, but I just read this last night. It's by a poet named Kimberly Glazer. She's an Ojibwe poet in Wisconsin, and it's called About Standing in Kinship. We all have the same little bones in our foot, 26 with funny names like navicular. Together, they build something strong. Our foot arch a pyramid holding us up. These bones don't get casts when they break. We tape them, one phalange to its neighbor for support. Other things like sorrow work this way too. Find healing in the leaning, the closeness. Our feet have 1/4 of all the bones in our body. Maybe we should give more honor to feet and to all those tiny but blessed cogs in the world. Communities, the forgotten architecture of friendship. you all about the movement that happened at Standing Rock in 2016, which is what my first book is about. You all were little then. Does anyone know anything about what happened? A little bit, a couple people a little bit. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about that before I start talking then. So Standing Rock is a reservation that shares geography with North and South Dakota. And in 2016, a company called Energy Transfer Partners said that they were going to put a pipeline through the reservation and under the Missouri River there. It had been moved from a whiter part of North Dakota where people had said that they did not want it. And so a movement was started by young people. And so this is a picture of them, to stop the pipeline. And so it was just high school kids. It was high school kids, and they wanted to do something, and they didn't know what to do, so they started doing these runs to gain attention. And their runs first were more local, and they started gaining more and more and more attention, and eventually they did a run from Standing Rock to all the way to Washington, D.C. To present a letter about the pipeline. And that kicked off this giant movement, and this beautiful camp formed at the reservation near where the pipeline was meant to go through. And at its biggest, there were 10,000 people there. And so it was not a piece of land that had existing infrastructure, but people came and people worked together and people built a community. There was a outhouse system with a cleaning schedule. There was garbage pickup. There were medic tents. There were kitchens where people came together and cooked. And this lasted for 5 months, or longer than 5 months. Actually, sorry, I was there for 5 months, but this lasted for about 9 months of people living out there. It was cold in the winter, as I'm sure you can imagine, in North Dakota. But people really built community to try to make change. And right now, at this time, I am doing a lot of thinking about resistance and showing up and community and what my place is in all of that at this moment. I suspect a lot of you are thinking about these things as well. I'm sure a lot of you are doing incredible things. I'm sure a lot of you are going to do incredible things. And so this is a movement that inspires me and that I think about a lot. And so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about it tonight. I want to also acknowledge, actually, let me tell you a little bit about my role there. So I had worked a lot in the region. I'd been a teacher, and then I came to just deliver some donations and started volunteering with a school that was starting there, and ended up taking a year off grad school. I was studying my MFA in poetry to stay and be involved and to help run the school at the camp. My friend Elena Eagleshield had started it and invited me to be there with her. Before I read some poems about this, which I promise I'm going to get to, I want to also acknowledge that I'm very grateful to have been a guest there on Indigenous land and in this movement. I want to acknowledge that I am a white person who is writing about an Indigenous movement, which is a complicated thing. I never want my voice to be the only one people know of from this. So I want to share a few other resources and a few other ways of learning in case this is something you're interested in. One is a magazine called Orion, had a really beautiful feature of poets and writers called Women in Standing Rock. I super highly recommend it. It's so wonderful. And I just also wanted to tell you about some places to see and learn about Indigenous art in Chicago, which is the Center for Native Futures. They have incredible events, incredible exhibitions. They have an exhibition changing now. They have poetry readings, and also First Nations Garden, which is started by young people. Okay, so this is the cover of my book. I wanted to show it to you because I love it, because of my surrogate mother on Standing Rock. Her name is Val Eagle Shield, and she did the cover, or she did the embroidery for the cover that you see there. And my favorite thing about it is that I can see the work that she did with her hands. I can see the stitches, I can look at it, and I can know Val made this, someone made this. And that's what I'm thinking a lot right now about. What is the work we can do with our hands, right? Like, what am I doing in the world with my art, with my time? How am I building? How am I making? And I love getting to see what Val made whenever I look at my book. Tonight, I haven't even said the word pipeline. I peel the tape off these boxes with Elena, open their mouths that sing with gifts of seed beads, neon scissors, fat shimmered spools of sinew. We garland this torn army tent with August corn, say school, but mean river, milkweed, clay. We say everything is beginning to arrive. Since the suspension of construction for me, there is only this tent flap, lifting, the kids' hands, plate-filled small suns of yellow squash. The ridge where we carry our dinner. New power streaming from solar panels, swelling the sound of the round dance. And see, elders sipping soup, toddlers wobbly with lightsabers, gift of sage scenting their t-shirts. Before we have to talk about tear gas and torn down homes, give me this moment again. The rippling circles of tents like jewel-toned fish, votives of teepees flickering across the prairie. Someone says, look, and we turn now toward the bright kernels of stars spread along the tarp of the sky. Follow my eyes and see there, tipping green the poles of the teepees, drenching the night in fuchsia scarves, peeling and curling like birch bark from the Milky Way, the northern lights. And in this second of hushed and held breath, I know there's so much I don't know about the solar winds, the disturbances beneath all of this beauty. But maybe this is the most human thing we can do. Look upward, together, as the light changes from green to pink, the aurora ringing all these colors from the dark. Thank you. One thing I thought about a lot as I was writing this book was about, so this movement was characterized in the news by a gigantic level of police violence that occurred, really. That's a lot of what people saw. When it did make the news, that was a lot. People saw tear gas, people saw dogs biting people, and all of that stuff was true, right? All of that was true, and all of that happened, and it was really traumatic. And at the same time, the camp was also the most beautiful place I'd ever been, of people working together, people supporting each other. And as I wrote this book, that was something I was really thinking about. And I encourage you to think about these things too. As you are thinking about what you care about and how you are going to be a part of that, as you are thinking about the art you make, what is the joy? What is the beauty? Because in all of this dark, there is that too, and we have to tell those stories too. I know this afternoon, many of you are going to get to see Ross Gay, who was a really important person for me in thinking through that. So I want to shout out his name too, for that reminder that whatever we're fighting for, whatever we do, we've got to stop and see that joy. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a really quick little story, which is that whenever at the camp, I'd have to leave sometimes and go to the nearby casino to use the internet, right? And so but you can see there's this log here, and this log was like the playground for the kids at the camp, and so you'll hear about this log in the poem. There are no police in this poem. Only the kids balancing in their snow boots, the log beneath them rainbowed in resistance slogans. Slush gray light interrupted by the bright flags of their arms. They waved down our car. Teachers! Teachers! We unclick the loose tooth of each manual lock, and the dinged up doors, full weight of the kids on their handles, fly open like the arms of startled infants. There are no police in this poem. Only Shawnee Ray, my foot as her springboard vaulting to the council, asterisking my borrowed skirt with the juice of her gas station pickle. Only Shelby's hands winging my books from the backseat, and Shaylina, who can't be bothered, wedging her knees into the narrow volumes of poetry, slick picture book covers. I'm saying there are no police in this car. Where Frankie lunges over everybody, her arms and long black cape of a coat wrapped around baby Dylan, Marshmallow Man in his snowsuit, fingers Sour Patch sticky. And somehow, suddenly, my hands, my feet are off the wheel, the pedals. I am ankle deep in the snow. All the teachers are shivering spectators of this wild joy. And I can see it doesn't belong to me, but I can love it anyway, anyhow. There are no police anywhere. As Emma's elbow pokes the horn, beep, 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 jostling through the snow muffle of prairie, as Raina and Nyla and RJ co-sardine the driver's seat, getaway curls smushed against the felt of the ceiling. There are no seats left in the car, so Michael and Layton scramble the windshield, sprawl on the roof. There are only the kids shouting the ecstatic tally of themselves. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 14 as they take this frame that looked so inflexible and there make space for each of their bodies. I'm building a school. Shaylina, age 9, of hot pink coat and perfect scrambled eggs, presses her Velcro boot against the wire of ice and barbs, opens the fence that keeps us from the river. She tells me what she heard about the sacred objects, returned by the county after the raid, hand-fringed hide of chanupa bags, deer given skin of the drums, stained yellow with the piss of police. I crawl through the passage, past the cottonwood choking with leafless vine, the abandoned nest of the snow bunting, preserved in its sheath of ice. She speaks of these handmade objects, and I think of what we are trying to build, this idea we call a school. I think of a friend who said, Native tradition creates beauty in every object, a reminder to care for what you have. I've spent years with the disposable test booklets, tiny eyes of each multiple choice, classrooms with 4 reliable walls, years believing I could know what was best. Shaylina of 6 sisters, of telling adults to stop screaming about cops and scaring the kids, leads me down a sandy slope, away from the road that spins with lumber, ladder, tent poles. These these fragments that will rebuild the homes that were taken last week, rebuild the homes we all know may be taken again. We dip to a slim cuticle of a bank, frozen, freckled today with trash. Months ago, the kids built a ramshackle bridge here. The driftwood, glistening jade with algae, the splintering damp in the sun. They climbed to the edge, unbothered that the bridge reached no certain bank, scrambled on scraped knees and hands, and trusted the rotting of the wood, and maybe trusted even the fall. The first time somebody mentioned staying the winter among the horse games and giveaways of August, I laughed. The story of my skin made me believe we'd win history. Quickly, go home. How will I know how to name this for the kids, for myself, if we fail? Shailena digs in the cold sand, unearths a Skittles wrapper, the rainbow mud fossiled into a brittle bird. I am about to warn her to stay away from the water's cold edge when she slips the trash gently into my hand, says, "Sha." Next, hands me a crinkled Lay's bag, "Ji," a ramen wrapper, "Sha ji." She hands me each Lakota color, picks up each piece one by one, as if we'd never heard the ambulances screech from the road, as if the helicopters didn't scar the air with their mosquito song. She names each item as if there was no other sound in the world for what we held in our hands. Thank you. One thing I wanted to talk about with this project also was the fact that ultimately the pipeline did get put through the river, right? The pipeline was built, and all of these people, again, tens of thousands of people had come and spent this time, given up so much of their lives, of their time, of their money, of relationships to be there for something that ultimately did still happen. And I think when I was writing this book, that is something that I was thinking a lot about, as I talked about in that poem, is how do I think about this? Like, how do I think about what it means to have been involved in a resistance movement that in many ways, you can say did not succeed, right? And so I think that I had to write this book to process that. And it was really hard. Well, let me also say, it wasn't my land. It wasn't my community. And I was able to go home to my home. And I still did just not know what to do with this information, And so I want to talk more about that, and I want to share some poems about that. I also want to talk a little bit about some of the poems in my book use documents from the police. And when I first started writing this, I did not know how to tell this story. And I don't know if any of you have been in a similar place where there's something you want to write about, but you don't have that tool set yet, or you don't know how to speak about it. And so for me, one of the things that I did was I started with the stories other people were telling. And I said, I can't say that much right now, but I can put my little bit of truth into this story. And so I want to, thinking about time, I want to share just one of these poems, one of these document poems. And this is, I think, something so powerful that poetry can do that other things can't, or art can do that other things can't, is tell these small hidden pieces of the story that actually are the big story. And so this is a story about my friend Red Fawn, who was arrested for having a gun at a protest which was planted on her. Woman charged, and so you can see, I don't know how much you can see here, but you'll be able to tell some of the language is an official police report, and some of the language is my language. Woman charged with attempted murder of law enforcement officer. Date, October 31st, 2016. Agency, Morton County. Mandan, North Dakota. The Morton County State's Attorney's Office charged 37-year-old Red Fawn Fallis, who called me chitty chatty bang bang as I trailed her camp to camp, who marched a waving rainbow of ribbon skirts through the still tall grass. With attempted murder, Class A felony, preventing arrest, C felony, carrying a concealed weapon, a bag of flat leaf cedar for ceremony in the band of her skirt. She held the resined needles between us, and they branched like capillaries, which is to say, like prayer. A misdemeanor, criminal conspiracy to commit endangering by fire. She offered tobacco, asked elders what they could teach. Beadwork, they said, hand drums, stories of Iktomi and the duck's red eyes. She wrote answers in her pencil's soft lead. C felony, maintaining a public nuisance. A misdemeanor, and engaging in a riot. B misdemeanor. In September, before the oil money spotlights, we were guided only by pollen-scattered stars. And Red Fawn, though the plains grew thigh-high and we worried for snakes, you led us, your strong boots, bending the stems to bring us home. Thank you. All right, I am going to read 2 more poems, I think, and then talk about questions, or ask if you all have any questions. This one is a longer one. This is about coming home after camp, and like I said, trying to make sense of what happened and trying to figure out how to remember it. I had a lot of back problems. I needed surgery after I came home, and I had planned to go back and wasn't able to, and so when the camp was taken down, I was at home at my house in St. Louis watching that happen on TV. Baking bread as Ocheti Shakoi is rated. 1. Nobody stands at Northgate anymore, where bulldozers lumber the slope, score the dirt with their teeth, scatter men who slash teepees in the wet earth where we once lived. Winona's kitchen, the tent where the kids donned rubber gloves, ladled soup into hundreds of bowls, crumples like a foal in the snow. The sheriff calls this victory. I am very happy to say that we finally introduced rule of law in the Ocheti camp. And I am not there. And I don't want to tell you this, but I am leaning against my stove in St. Louis, clutching a recipe's flimsy page written in black and white, as blurry as the window of my computer streams Ocheti in from the edge of my counter. I am just a woman whose back will not support her in a city that hides its water behind high voltage lines and highway, the starburst windows of forgotten factories. The bulldozers power toward the cannonball. River I slept beside, churn the earth and the roots of each plant as central heat pumps like an old heart through my house. 2. I used to trust in the words that were placed on my tongue. I called the river Missouri, but learned no language for the dams, redirecting the water, holding back the stories of the silt and the clay. I never learned of the children who were taken from its side. I never learned why I was taught to sing, "This land is my land." 3. The county commissioner says he's proud the camp was cleared without any major injuries, and I remove a glass measuring cup from my shelf. Travis's plywood home where he practiced the songs he would sing with the kids, the home he built with his hands, spray painted, "We are unarmed," erupts into flames. I unfold the origami of the flower's silent mouth. The bulldozers turn and shred hay bales that kept our teepees warm in the wind, yank the foundation from Tonia's wigwam where Shailena and Shawnee last hugged me goodbye. The bag coughs flour like dandelion seed, and I cannot come clean of it. Coating my fingers white, wedged white between the threads of my sweater, burrowed white in the split wood of my counter. On the screen, assault rifles push the last few people to the river. 4. Some days I lean against my sink, feel the grinding in my spine, and I am ashamed to say that some small piece of me wishes I could close the window, simply follow the directions that have been written so clearly before me. Let my world be the chipped white of the cabinets, the shift of the pots and pans above my head. Forget I ever lived beside a river. But the Missouri and the Mississippi become one and reach me even here, each time I turn my tap. When the edges of the cannonball overflow, touch the places along the riverbank where we sought sticks for drums and studied the plants and sat in circles and sang, "The water runs here." Every day I brush my teeth with Ochetti. Every day I wash my clothes with Ochetti. Every day it is Ochetti that fills my glass. 5. On the feed, the soldiers are chasing Eric, who made tea for our coughs, dipping into marshmallow root and ginger and osha. Once he measured herbs with the kids as I measure my water to the line, stir until strands of gluten begin to form. The camera bucks and I see only a river of sky, and Eric is screaming. 6. The governor says he is glad the efforts have gone so smoothly. When one by one each feed blinks out. What we built is now just mud and sleet, ash and firewood broken by bulldozer chains. Still, I see the sacred fire in the summer, Frankie braiding my hair in the food line, Wolf and Junior grass dancing in the firelight. I don't know how when the pipeline will run beneath the river, when the water will brush its strange plastic tubes before it reaches our lips. I don't know if this bread will ever rise or when or where the first oil will leak, but I am learning something small of how to see a river. To see the drowning hidden beneath the water, and see also the kids on the banks covered in temporary tattoos, hair spiked from days of swimming. They are praying for the construction workers. Help them understand their kids drink water too. Tobacco sprinkles from their fingers is taken in the breath of the current. Ultimately, through the writing of this book, I think, for me, I was able to understand what happened there differently, and to be able to hold all that pain, and to also be able to see the beauty that came out of this movement. Again, tens and thousands of people there working together, and so much came out of it. The school is still happening. There's a health organization happening. There's solar and wind power organizations that started there. And so one thing right now I'm trying to remember, because I know that resistance and I know that protest comes sometimes with failure. And I'm trying to remind myself that it's worth it anyway, right? Standing up for what we care about is worth it regardless of the outcome. We don't know what those ripples are down the road. All right, and this is a sort of love poem to community, and this is to all of you as well. An invitation to an eclipse party. This was the eclipse back in like 2017 or something. But did anyone see the eclipse a couple years ago? Did anyone see the full eclipse? Because it's like mind-blowing, right? Okay. An invitation to an eclipse party. I am wearing a dress of fist-sized polka dots, and for you, friend, serving moon pies and lunar-colored cheeses. It might as well be a wedding. I am so in love with each person collapsed on the comforter of faded ducks, or playing fetch with the dogs from discount camp chairs, arms outstretched and ready with a rubber ball. Look, beneath the oak, my husband feathers with a million crescent suns, turning his hair to foreign thicket, scattering the hands I know best by their touch on my stomach. We are trying to have a child. You are the first one I've told. You know all this, how there's no more cook shack at Ochetti, no more corn drying beneath red tarps, giant pots to scrub or help yourself mint and echinacea tea. How the school is just the mildewed skin of a yurt, and I understand something now of how a whole world can disappear. And you know too how last week white supremacists rioted in Charlottesville, how we saw their militia, Hitler t-shirts, sharp sides of swastika flags, how they called in their chants for the man I love and our child, small, unexistent planet, bit of uncongregated light, to burn in the dark, disappear beneath their hands. And how could I invite anyone here, where blades of grass silver before us and cicadas sound their alarms when I know I cannot protect them? But as the pugs run orbits around their own surreal shadows and the gnats panic from the butterfly bush, as we lose piece after piece of sun, let me give you these small cardboard glasses. Let's share the sweetness of the remaining Oreos, take bright swigs of half-drunk sunny delight. I believed once some myths about this day and others, most recently that all light could be lost. The center could go dark entirely. But astronomers say, even in totality, when our eyes detect only a hungry hole of sky, the moon is glowing, faint but no matter, with earthshine. So enamored am I of our strange starlight, reflected and refracted again and again You know, I wouldn't say that I'm trying to write about the lives of Indigenous people. I'd say I'm trying to write about this little piece of the story that I know. And also, you know, I think that, like I said, the camp was such intense experience, and I needed to process it, and writing is the way that I process. And then I wanted to talk with people about this experience. Yeah. I'm so sorry, can you say that again?
What are your ways to come up with writing?
Ooh, that is an excellent question, and I'm not sure I have a perfect answer for it, but I journal a lot, even at times. It's hard for me to write about things that are difficult while they're happening. I can't really write poems in those moments, but I do journal a lot, and so I try to really notice the world, and that helps me do it. And try to keep those little notes, you know? And then as I'm writing, you know, I reread those journals. I actually am a terrible artist. I draw like stick figures, but sometimes I sketch while I'm writing to try to like jog in me what's happening. I don't know if that answers your question. Talk to me more about it if you want to talk more though.
One in the back, holding.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't see where, but
Okay,
go ahead. Let me read your question. Yeah, thank you. That's such a good question. So I have an exact answer to this because I wrote the first draft of this exactly while I was pregnant, which is a very useful ticking time bomb of knowing when you're going to have less time. So I wrote the first draft in 9 months, but I'm actually an obsessive reviser, and then revised the book for probably the next, like, I want to say 4 years. So revising is actually a much larger part of my writing process than the initial drafting. All right, thank you so much.